August 1994.
The arrival of Oasis and the release of Definitely Maybe.
A moment in music history that'll live forever.
I felt like I belonged to something.
25 years later, we get to tell you the official other side of the story.
They really were like kids who hadn't left their home turf.
That was the level of it. We were mates.
To hear what really happened when Definitely Maybe went supersonic. This is Listen Up, the people's story of Definitely Maybe. The Oasis podcast. Hello, I'm Elizabeth Holker, and coming up in episode 2. With word spreading like wildfire and demand for tickets soaring, we'll hear from fans who fought their way to the front of the stage.
My wife was quite scared, actually, because it was quite laddish and rough at the front.
Plus, that first time Oasis were beamed into living rooms right across the UK.
I remember the performance on The Word, and that was kind of, who are these guys?
But for the band to take it to another level, first they needed to deliver what their growing army of fans were calling for, a debut album.
I'd like to build myself a house out of plasticine. Mr. Clean and Mr. Ben are living in my loft.
After a shaky start and one failed recording session in Wales, the band were dispatched to the remote Sawmills Studios in Cornwall in the southwest of England. There, they met sound engineer Anjali Dutt.
I was a freelance engineer. I was used to going to different places. It was part of what I did. And I rang up ahead to the studio and said, I've got all my gear to bring. How do I get there? And they sort of said something about the M4 or the M3 or something. And then they went, and here are the tide times. And I was like, what do you mean, here are the tide times? He said, well, if you arrive between these times, you'll have to walk along the train line. And if you don't arrive in those times, you'll have to come on the boat. And I thought, wow, I've heard a lot of strange instructions in my life, but that's a first. Anyway, I arrived, got there, and of course, nobody's there. And then when they did finally arrive, which was quite late, and I'd been standing there for a long time doing not very much, they were just like a whole bunch of kids on a school trip.
Amsterdam. Be smart. Be smart. Be smart. Be smart, man. What are you saying there, Connor?
It was like this bunch of kids just sort of piled through the door, like I know they had done gigs and stuff, but they really were like kids who hadn't really left their home turf much. And here they were going to stay in this place, and it wasn't their bedroom, and the people were going to cook for them and feed them, and they could watch the telly, and they could play pool, and they could get the PlayStation out, which I think might have been around then. And I'd worked with some really big stars along my time. I'd worked with, say, Billy Ocean or Bryan Adams or Iron Maiden, some big ones where their catering had come in, and it would all be very fancy eating food. And the kids sort of went, can we just have bangers and chips or something? And I thought, oh, this is going to be different, isn't it? Everybody was like really busy running around, like just being generally excited about being on holiday, except they weren't on holiday. They were supposed to be making a record. I really, really believe that hierarchy that people set up at school lasts for the rest of your life, because you just remember what you thought and how it worked. So there was Liam and his mates, and I felt as though they were all in one school year and they kind of just talked the way they did about each other. That was them. Gwigsy was quite laid back, so he was a little bit quieter. Bonehead was a little bit older. And then there was Noel, and Noel was basically stuck with being in his kid brother's band. I'm sure he would have liked to have been in Crazy Horse or something, but he wasn't. He was in his kid brother's band, and his kid brother could sing very, very well.
But before tomorrow, 'cause my friend said he'd take you home. He sits in a car all alone.
Eventually, the time ran out at Sawmills and Anjali and the band was sent to Eden Studios in London to finish off the recordings.
One of the other things I didn't realise at the time, that it was very useful to have a tidal creek between you and the outside world, because they knew a lot of people. You know, they were a bit like a rap band, you know, they had a crew. Also, like, Liam was quite good at finding new people to bring back if he went out, you know, so he'd go to the fish and chip shop and he wouldn't just come back with fish and chips, they'd be like, all these extra people would come. And so I was older than them. I was from the south of England. I was, in fact, from London. I was a nice middle-class, ethnically diverse girl from North London. You know, it really wasn't anything that I'd worked towards. I've got like no ticks in any of the boxes whatsoever. It was just this unusual event. I just got parachuted into doing this thing.
With the band struggling to get a mix that captured their live sound, manager Marcus Russell called in producer Owen Morris.
I think they'd run out of money by then as well, Oasis, so I think Noel paid for all the mixing out of his publishing advance. And that went well, obviously. I went down to Wales and I think we did a Rock and Roll Star, which needed a vocal, so I recorded Liam and then mixed it and then mixed Columbia. And then got the job for the rest of it, really. We had the 2 days at Loco Studios in Newport or whatever it is. I think probably Bonehead would have driven Noel and Liam down from Manchester. I was living in Manchester as well, so I'd have driven down. And multi-track for Rock and Roll Star is put on, and they need a lead vocal. So Noel just goes and watches football with Bonehead on TV, and Liam just sings it a bunch of times, and he was great, obviously, it's Liam Gallagher. Because I'd heard, you know, the stories that he thought he was John Lennon. I said, "Do you sound like John Lennon?" And he loved that. And he was just gobby and talking. And I told him to fuck off and leave me alone to comp the vocal, put it together, so I can concentrate. Apparently, he told Noel this. He's just told me to fuck off. And Noel came in and said, "Did you tell my brother to fuck off?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's brilliant." They were on tour constantly, so they had that couple of days to Liam to sing Rock and Roll Star, and then we had, I think, 2 days that they found about a month later, where we went and recorded pretty much all the rest of the vocals. Noel, as became the way they seemed to work, would have a listen to the first take of Liam to make sure he was getting the words and phrasing right, which he always did, and then Noel would fuck off, and they'd leave me to it then. You know, I'd compile the vocals, and because they were on tour, I was left just to get on with the mixing myself. After I'd mixed the album, Sheffield Leadmill, went there and watched them, and that was pretty brilliant, watching, you know, the Definitely Maybe set where it just started and it was fucking loud and ended and off they went. I think that was the first time I saw them properly live, and it sounded exactly the same as what I did, which was really loud. That was good.
With Owen busy adding the final touches to the mix, the band's momentum was escalating in the UK media. Soon, Oasis landed a slot on the biggest youth TV show at the time in Britain, The Word.
I remember the performance on The Word, and that was kind of, who are these guys?
That really was something special. That show was really, really hot at that time.
Anjali Dutt was with the band for the recording of the show.
It was mania. Like, you know how people get drawn like moths to a flame when they see something, the big thing that's going to happen. All sorts of people started drifting towards them, and it was all very exciting.
DJ and presenter Dermot O'Leary remembers watching the show go out live.
Even at the time when we were in baggy clothes, they always felt like they were always wearing coats inside, you know. It felt like they'd just come off the site, like the building site, and they just waltzed in. But there was just this swagger.
The only thing I'd say is, all of a sudden, I realised why the others were in the band. It was just amazing, actually. I had no idea they would like that live, because all I'd ever seen was these little kids ribbing each other, and all of a sudden I thought, wow. It really was quite obvious that it was Liam's show.
Johnny Hopkins.
Pure attitude, Liam dripping menace as he tended to do, left the stage in a squall of feedback. Brilliant, job done.
Dermot O'Leary, who also recently interviewed Noel.
We were talking about that word clip, and I said, was it a thing, playing the word? And he said by then they'd had so much barroom experience, they'd been gigging 3-4 nights a week for about 6 months, maybe longer. He said that they knew they were good. That's what I love about Noel. There's no kind of, we're so apologetic as a nation, aren't we? And actually what I love about Noel, it's not arrogant. And even if it is, it doesn't matter. He knew they were going to be good and they were going to be big because he just knew the songs were good.
It's not up to us, you know what I mean? All we can do is write and record. And if the people buy the records, then we'll be part of 1995's pop history. Hopefully we'll still be going in the year 2000, you know what I mean? But as for 1994, this is our year, without a shadow of a doubt. No one can touch us this year.
Music journalist Sylvia Patterson.
I think I was aware that there was a band called Oasis, but I'd never actually heard a single note until, I remember it vividly, it was April. It was a Saturday morning. I was staying overnight on the couch of one of my best buddies, and we were watching the chart show. And I was by myself, completely hungover, and the chart show was on, and a new release that particular week was by this band called Oasis. And I had no idea what was coming. I was sitting there smoking a fag, and I bolted out of my seat and I thought, who is that extraordinary looking human being? What is this song? What's he singing? I was absolutely transfixed. And my buddy Tom came in to the living room, having picked up the phone from his brother in Dundee, and he turned down to me and he said, "Oh my God, Sylv, Kurt Cobain has killed himself." And it was like the culture just changed in 1 second, in the time it took really for a bullet to go off. It was like somebody had completely just switched a different kind of light on.
This one's called Live Forever.
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 Journalist Hamish McBain.
It's such a neat parallel between the fact that Kurt Cobain's last released song was called I Hate Myself and I Want to Die, and then a couple of months later you had Oasis with Live Forever. If you want historical context, it's just perfect, really, isn't it, in terms of a pendulum swing from this American band who are kind of trapped in this horrible prison of success and acclaim that they didn't really want. And then you swing to these British guys who are just, we'll take whatever you got going.
Maybe I just wanna fly, wanna live but don't wanna die. Maybe I just wanna breathe, maybe I just don't believe. Maybe you're the same as me, we see things I'll never see. You and I gonna live forever.
Oasis are being hyped as the best band around at the moment, but they do have a reputation for trashing hotel rooms. I wonder what this one's going to be like.
I do remember very vividly, I would have been 15, watching an interview with Noel and Liam on a programme called The Ozone. The interviewer was Zoe Ball, and she was wearing an Adidas top and a flat cap.
Because I come in here expecting to find the place totally trashed, and you're both asleep, and it's actually quite clean and tidy. Is this all a big lie? Do you really trash hotel room?
No.
No.
Yes, he does. No, I don't.
She asked them, do you really want to be the biggest band in the world?
You're being hyped as the best band around at the moment. Is all the hype true?
Yeah.
Liam actually said, and I can still remember it word for word because it felt so fresh at the time. He said,
"We just want to be the biggest band in the world, as big as we can be today, and that is it. End of story.
I want to be a big pop star.
And we want all the things that go with it. Oh, I want to be a big pop star.
I want to do loads of people's heads in. I want everyone to be looking at me going, no, 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 no.
I want to do loads of people's heads in because they're going, look at him, and I'm going, nah." You know what I mean?
And I want it, and I'm not embarrassed about it.
But I want it, and I'm not embarrassed about it.
And by God, did he stick to that?
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people get embarrassed about all this success that they get. They go, oh, I didn't really want it. You know what I mean? Of course you wanted it. You know what I mean? Because that's what you go out for. You do it. Doesn't matter whether you're in a band or you're in whatever. I want to be a spaceman.
It's hard to put across how refreshing that felt in the context of 1994, where the bands who populated the music papers, they just all seemed quite nervous about the idea of any kind of stepping anywhere near the mainstream. They seemed very, very happy in the indie world, I guess.
Shaker Maker was the second song to be released as a single on the 13th of June 1994.
I bought the single the day it was released for £2.99 from the local Woolworths.
Fan Louise Davies.
This song shows just how good a songwriter Noel Gallagher is. Who else could take a melody from a Coca-Cola commercial and turn it into a timeless classic? The artwork Brian Cannon created for the single is simply superb. On the front cover, you can see his hand pressing play on a stereo that had an Oasis cassette inside it. The concept was, when the music came out of the speakers, it was so powerful that it melted all the objects in the room.
DJ and presenter Sean Rowling.
The band were scheduled to play Glastonbury in June of 1994. I think they walked on stage around about 2:30 or something like that, something ridiculous like that. It was a grey, overcast day. You can check it out on YouTube now, and it was interesting to go back and watch that clip because it sort of stirred up a lot of emotions and a lot of memories of how I felt just watching it for the first time. And I really had made a point of that was one gig I was not going to miss. I remember watching that dynamic on stage and thinking, oh, fuck, this is a bit tense. And whilst obviously there's not too much communication going on between band and, well, Liam in particular, and the audience, there's a couple of classic Liam-isms that he throws away right at the beginning. And then the only other communication that he manages to impart to the audience is the classic line, I've got nothing to say.
Dominic Mohan.
You know, I didn't know a huge amount of their material, but I must have heard Shaker Maker and Supersonic. So I remember Michelle and I, my now wife, went to Kentish Town Forum, got there quite early because they were supported by Cast, as we say down here. Had a few beers and we were waiting for hours, it felt like. I mean, there was a real buzz about the band. There was the smell of marijuana hanging in the air. I don't think they came on till must have been 10:30 or something. I mean, obviously their set at that time wouldn't have been that long. And it was, you know, people were pretty rowdy because they'd been waiting for so long. They opened with Columbia. I remember they opened with Columbia, and it was life-changing. It really was. My wife was quite scared, actually, because it was quite laddish and rough at the front. There were a lot of people surfing to the stage and jumping into the crowd. We were right at the front to the left. I can remember exactly where we were. It was a really mind-blowing gig.
I suppose when we realised how mad it was on those early tours when there were more people trying to get in than were actually in the sold-out shows. For instance, when they played the Adelphi Hall, which is the greatest venue in the UK, right, there were seriously more people in the street than could actually get into the venue.
the band's Scottish gig promoter, Paul Cardo.
When they first sold out the Battleland, the demand was so high. We were just pestered non-stop by people who couldn't get in. You had to employ more security, mainly to stop everyone trying to sneak in. You had to try and deal with the touts because Oasis tickets were probably the highest value item in Britain at that point in time.
That goes for you up there.
Do you know the story about the Battleland show where Liam lost his voice? And I mean this, I genuinely had nightmares about this for weeks, right? Liam lost his voice and they had to go off stage for a few songs, right? And the crowd got restless. Now, because of everything that was going on with the band and the image that the band had, the police were there and they were on the spot. And they started giving me some serious threats about what could happen if a riot starts, and they wanted it calmed down. And Noel was great. Noel went up and played some songs acoustically to try and calm the crowd down. But the police were like, you need to go on stage and make an announcement. I'm like, I'm not making an announcement on stage. I will get lynched. I will get torn apart, right? And eventually, we agreed that I was going to do it from side of stage. So I stood side of stage, ready to make this announcement that I really didn't want to have to make. And the police decided at the last minute it would be better with me on stage, and they literally pushed me. So I came on stage staggering sideways, realised I was in front of a crowd of now drunk people, and having to tell them that Oasis wouldn't be finishing the set because Liam had lost his voice. I literally got hit by about 1,000 plastic tumblers, and even though they're plastic, they still hurt a lot when there's 1,000 of them round. And immediately after I came back off, the next level up of police, I don't know what it was, whether it's sergeant or whatever, came in and pointed out these police officers shouldn't have made me go on stage, and they now were worried about my safety. And they actually gave me a police escort to take me home because they were genuinely worried I was going to get attacked in the streets. They did give me a police escort, and the police escort did stop off while I got a bag of chips.
Early biographer Paul Mather.
They played Newcastle. It was a gig that was going out on Radio 1.
Basically, someone came up on stage, went for Noel. Noel retaliated, jumped into the crowd. Liam followed, and it's all gone just horribly, stupidly wrong.
It's still not clear who this person was. There's rumours it was a disgruntled Sunderland fan who didn't want Oasis to ever play Newcastle again, but he leapt up on stage and tried to attack Noel. So Noel hit him with his guitar, like really hard. I mean, this guy damaged the guitar as much as damaged his own head, I suppose.
I want to play people who can't, because you can't have things like people jumping up, hearing people on the stage, right? So, sorry, next time, you know what I mean? Sorry, next time.
I think it's a disgrace that if people come to Newcastle, despite their reputation for being hard men or whatever, the reputation Oasis carry around with them, I think it's disgusting that bands come here and they're getting attacked. You know what I mean? We want people. Newcastle's ignored enough. But the last thing
they're the people who've put us in the charts and put us on top of the pops, and it's sad for them, right? But they've got to respect our position. Music to me is the be-all, and the fans of the band and everything is the be-all and end of it. But I've only got two eyes. One goes, I don't get another one back. So at the end of the day, it's like it's only rock and roll, and I'm not prepared to die for anyone. And we as a band will give everything for them people who buy our records. But I'm not about to donate parts of my body for the cause.
Noel was really annoyed, not particularly because of what had happened, but because the guitar was given to him by Johnny Marr, and it was the guitar that was used on The Queen Is Dead, and that guitar was given to Johnny Marr by Pete Townsend. It's the same one that's on a lot of Who pictures. So it was kind of passing the baton down through the two influences that were very important to Noel over the time. But he damaged this guitar, so Noel rung up Johnny Marr and said, look, I'm really sorry, this guitar that you gave me is it's really damaged, it's going to need repairing. And the next thing he knows, Johnny Marr had sent a car round with a replacement guitar in it and a note that said, I think you'll find this one's got a bit more purchase on it. If you swing it, you can really do a lot of damage to someone's head with it.
This is Listen Up, the people's story of Definitely Maybe. The Oasis podcast. Their third single, Live Forever, was put out on the 8th of August on the eve of the album's release.
I remember when they released Live Forever as a single.
Fan Karen Furlong.
And the first time I heard it was, I was up in my bedroom. Next minute a knock came to the door, and it was my best friend. She was the only one at the time now that had a car, because there was no mobile phones now back then now, so all we did was call for one another. So we had the radio on in the car. This band came on called Oasis. When I heard the clicking of the sticks of the drums, and the next minute then the guitar came on, that was it, I was gone. Maybe I don't really want to know how your garden grows, because I just want to fly. To me, that's just like two best friends. Don't care what background you're from. Don't care what's after going on in your life. You're there for one another. I lost my son 5 years ago. When I buried him, I played that song when I came home. When Liam sang that in Malahide Castle last year, I just stood there and I absorbed everything. And I just said to myself, Liam is singing that to me. So to me, it means kind of a few things in my life. It means how I was back then, 18, not a care in the world, and now I'm 43. I've lived my life and ups and downs, but when I sing that song and when I play it, that's who I think about, is my son up in heaven.
Definitely Maybe was released on the 29th of August 1994. Reviews at the time called it outrageously exciting, a punchy lights out debut. One particularly literary journalist said the 11 songs on the album lie shining like so much crystal cut glass among the debris of the nation's hotel rooms. Indeed. Steve Lamacq.
By the time the album is set to go, there are so many people desperate to hear it that it becomes, bigger than any record virtually that year.
Paul Mather.
Day of the album release, I seem to remember they played maybe Virgin Megastore. I believe Evan Dando might have played with them, just stood up and played tambourine or something with them. I'd heard the tape of the album for probably 3 months before it came out, so I was kind of prepared for how it's going to be perceived, and it was automatically, every single review was kind of 5-star review.
Engineer Owen Morris.
Everyone was expecting it to be a successful creation record, but not really a number one, and everything that happened afterwards. So it was great. Great position for everybody.
I think one of the things about the album is when, we'd come through grunge, which had a different sort of anthem. What definitely maybe gave us was our voice back.
Welsh fan Louise Davis.
I first saw the band a few days after Definitely Maybe was released in North Wales. It was a small venue and it sold out well in advance, and it was packed when we eventually got inside. I was so excited to see them live, and there was no way on this earth we were standing at the back and not seeing them up close on the stage. So I grabbed my friend's hand and we made our way through the crowd, and we pushed more and more until we were quite close to the front. And when the band eventually came on, they blew the roof off the venue. They absolutely smashed it, and it's one of the greatest gigs I've ever been to. What a concert.
The Inspiral Carpets, Clint Boone.
When Definitely Maybe came out, I was like, fucking hell. The fairy tale is just starting now, you know what I mean? That's how, because, I said fairy tale, it was like that kid that we met in 1988, living at his mum's in Burnage with his 2 brothers. These dreams of wanting to be as good as Lennon and McCartney, or both of them, and wanting to be as good as U2, wanting to play as good as The Edge. It was like, he's done it. But you knew it wasn't the end of it. That was just the start of the best bit, really. That period where we were still active, 93, 94, we were still having some massive hit records. That was all exciting. We split our band up in spring of 95, partly because we'd lost our record deal with Mute. Manchester was very much perceived then as coming to an end. So why would anybody want to sign this fucking Manchester baggy band with stupid haircuts and white jeans? So we were sort of in a bit of a tough time. We decided to knock it on the head. Through that period, it was a bit of a low point in my life, and I came out of it brilliantly because it just made me get armed for the next bit of my life, which is the bit that I'm still in now. So I'm glad it happened, but when I was right in the middle of it, the weirdest thing was seeing what was happening with Oasis. So I'd go into our local supermarket, Monnow, Rochdale, with my milk. We used to get milk tokens because I had babies. They give you free milk, so you'd get sent these milk tokens. And I'd be there in the local shop, getting me bread, getting me whatever, pizza, whatever. You'd hear Oasis on the radio, and I'm there thinking, fucking hell, here's me now struggling a bit. All the magazines and newspapers like Oasis kicking off on a ferry, or this happening and that, and and I was there, just on my arse really. That was a weird time. And I didn't begrudge it, but I observed at that moment how it's always best in this industry not to go and shit on anybody when you're doing well, because when you're on your arse and you need people to help you, that's when they'll remember if you shat on them or not. But yeah, that moment in time when they were just on the way to superstardom, and I was just sat in my house in Rochdale watching it all happen in the papers. Bizarre.
Designer Brian Cannon.
I remember he was the first of the bunch to move to London, and he had a flat in Chiswick in West London, I believe. I was in town and I stayed with him one night. It takes quite a while for your royalties to filter through, I guess. He didn't buy the big house in Belsize Park until 96 or something. Supernova Heights. But I was in this flat in Chiswick. I'll never forget this. I thought, wow, he's made it. He really has made it. And what it was, in his hallway, there was a clothes rail with a load of his shirts that had all been ironed, the plastic bags over, on wire hangers that he'd sent to a laundry. I thought, that's it, he's made it. He has his shirts done at a laundry. Wow, And it was just little things like that. And they were just class. Another one, I remember going into Patrick Cott's shoemaker of the time, very fashionable, and I went to the Patrick Cott shop in Sloane Square, I think it was. I was trying to put a pair of shoes on, and the guy says to me, Noel Gallagher's got a pair of them. I know.
Dermot O'Leary again.
There's that really special 6 months to 18 months that you've got where you are breaking and you're the same age as the guys listening to you, and you're probably on about the same money and you're going through the same experiences. And it can only last for 6 months to 18 months. And then one of two things happen. Either you fade into obscurity or you go big and then circumstances take over and you don't have that commonality with people anymore because you are turning left on a plane. That period at the time must have felt so special for them, and it certainly felt special being a fan.
Done's fantastic, your music shite, it keeps me up all night, up all night.
It's not overnight to us, it's overnight to people like yourselves and all that, but it's a 3.5 year slog for us, so we're just taking it all in our stride. We deserve all the praise that we're getting at the moment because we write the best songs.
Yeah, because we mean it. We mean it, you know what I mean?
The fourth single from the album was Cigarettes and Alcohol, coming out on October the 10th, 94.
It's called Cigarettes and Alcohol. Now, what kind of an example is that to set to the British youth of today?
The radio probably ain't going to touch it because it says cigarettes and alcohol, but it's not glorifying.
It's not saying go on.
It's not glorifying drinking or smoking. It's a feeling that you get when you're on the dole and you've got no money, maybe to escape from your surroundings, that maybe all you have is cigarettes and alcohol, and that's all that matters.
Amamos a Oasis en México y definitely maybe sin duda es su mejor álbum.
Mexican fan Daniel Ortez Sada.
Cigarettes and Alcohol, it's one of my favorites because now that you listen more and more and more, it's not only about party, more social comments, Now, obviously, like the song said, you make it happen, so just enjoy it and take it as it comes. It was a really hard time because in the beginning of the year we had the Zapatista movement. Then in March of that year, the political candidate for the president was killed. And at the end of the year, we have a really, really bad economic times. It was open your eyes for the real world. And obviously you need something to listen and not always think that it's gonna be wrong. And when appear Oasis on the radios, it's like a signal of hope.
Next time on the people's story of Definitely Maybe, the band gear up for global stardom.
I remember when we were on our way to my friend's place, Liam got into a shopping cart that Bonehead was pushing. It was some random shopping cart that just happened to be on the sidewalk.
We'll hear how their music stopped one member of Metallica right in his tracks.
And I was driving down the hill and I was flipping through the stations and there was a song that was on Live 105 and it just oozed fucking attitude and swagger and it just sounded unlike anything I'd ever heard.
Plus, as Britpop takes hold back in Britain, Oasis fever spreads throughout the nation.
It's hard to explain now. It was because it was everywhere, even in primary school. It was such serious culture suddenly. I mean, I went to school in South London. People were pretending they were from Manchester and they were 10.
Thank you for listening. And don't forget, the remastered version of Definitely Maybe is available on all services to stream and download now. This was a Cop and Nuzzle production for Big Brother Recordings.